Thank you for inviting me.
Now that we are on alert level 2, Themba, how is that going to benefit your bus business, your bus service?
Well, the changes insofar as COVID-19 regulation, obviously, this time around slightly improves our situation as bus operators. However, we still have those challenges in terms of the number of people that are traveling inter-provincially. We are very optimistic insofar as the current developments, because like I'm saying, we certainly are improving compared to what it happened when COVID-19 struck for the first time.
Now, Themba, how does it impact on you, the fact that you can only do up to 70% loading capacity?
That is a big challenge. Look, for an example, the cost of operation does not change.
Yeah.
Whether you're loading full capacity, 70 capacity, or 50%, operational costs, they remain the same, if not increasing, because we have diesel, for an example, increasing now and again, and also other commodities that we use to maintain the business. So it is really killing in terms of the costs involved in running of the business. So financially, we do not necessarily make what we should be making as a business. We are just trying to keep afloat of what is happening.
And speaking of keeping afloat, have you had any sort of relief funding from the government?
Unfortunately not. And despite having submitted the application as was advised by the relevant department, after submitting the application, we could not even receive acknowledgement of receipt of the application. And I do not know of others, but as Nozulu, we never received anything from the government insofar as that particular assistance.
Themba, we know that your kind of business is closely linked to the tourism sector, because it entails transporting tourists to different places, and we know that the tourism sector has been one of the largest hit sectors. So since March last year, we know that COVID-19 has been a very, very challenging period to everyone. Just tell us how it has impacted on your business.
It has impacted very negatively. Remember when, I think it was around 11 of March, when COVID regulations came into effect, specifically lockdown, and that had an almost immediate negative effect on the business. We could not operate at all. And the costs remained the same, remaining the same, meaning we still had to pay landlords, we still had to pay some of the staff members, and service other creditors. But we could not cope as such because our business relies heavily on ticket sales, for an example. That is where we generate revenue. We do not have any other source of income. And naturally, such a situation was a direct blow to our operations. It was a severe sort of experience that we had to endure. And yes, not only tourism, but also special hires, maybe the schools and the other businesses. We could not get any business for that matter. So we were adversely affected.
And I know that so many businesses have been severely affected and some have opted for job losses. So have you suffered the same fate? How were you able to cushion the job losses during this COVID-19 period?
Well, we had to dig deeper to whatever that we have as financial backup. But we were definitely affected severely. Being a small business, we don't have much reserves. But the situation was such that we needed to survive. We needed to stay afloat, and we needed to at least keep the basics so that should the situation improve, we were in a position to pick up in terms of the operations and the business itself.
Okay.
So financially, we're very much hit hard.
And as a black-owned company, how are you able to compete with some of the top Lux liners who have been in the game for long?
That has always been a pain. because, for an example, we are glad that the government provided, for an example, opportunities for black operators to participate in the industry. However, getting into the industry itself is a challenge. One, for an example, you apply for operating license, it goes through the process and so on and so forth, gets gazetted. Then you'll have a common tendency of big guns, if I may use the term, objecting to operating licenses or the application thereof. And that stifles new entrants into the industry, but also suffocates the small operators like ourselves, because now when you are applying for operating licenses, you would have some of these big companies objecting to that. They bring a barrage of attorneys and advocates to hearings. Now, instead of spending money in ensuring that you obtain the necessary operating licenses to be in the business, now you have to spend money to defend objections raised by these notorious big operators. And that is a strategic position that these particular companies seemingly have taken because the industry itself at this point in time is dominated by whites and Indians. I'm talking inter-provincial operations. And as such, seemingly there was a strategic position taken elsewhere after a certain prosperity that, look, if we allow these African operators to join the industry willy-nilly, that is going to shrink the cake, so to speak. So it's tough. And secondly, we are competing with people that have benefited in the previous dispensation. They have all the money, they've amassed all the money, they have all the resources in their disposal. They are able to pay whatever that needs to be paid. Whereas on our part, we struggle even to get loans from business because, for an example, to purchase a coach, luxury coach, you need about 4 million rands, excluding other expenses. Now you go to the bank and say, look, I need 4 million to purchase a pass. We all know how stringent the requirements are. You go to government institutions which are tasked to assist in financing business, black business in particular. Then you end up again with the very same kind of challenges. You need to basically submit or provide what the commercial banks want. So either way, we're finding it difficult to actually embed ourselves in the business itself. And the big guns, so to speak, they are actually continuing to monopolize the industry. And that is still a pain, I must say.
So in short, Themba, you are suggesting that black business people are finding it incredibly difficult to infiltrate this Lux liner market?
From my personal experience, I would say definitely yes. And that was also evidence, I think, during, I'm not sure, I don't remember the specific year, when the Competition Commission entered into the space and conducted public hearings, specifically on the issue of, amongst other, the operations or within the bus industry, obviously also looking into the taxi industry. And it became very clear that up until now, as a black person in the bus industry specifically, because I can't talk beyond the work that I'm doing, it is still a serious challenge to penetrate the industry. And I'm saying the big guns, they suffocate. I remember in one of the hearings I attended, I made a statement that, look, seemingly there is some sort of economic sabotage, which is a program of some of these operators. And why I said that and why I still believe such thing is in existence is because there are certain areas that us as black operators, I'm talking inter-provincial or inter-city, we are unable to penetrate in those because either by implication or insinuation, you find that the blockage is not on the officials in the Department of Transport, but there are those particular operators who are making it difficult for people like us to enter into the space. Remember also to operate in various towns and cities within the country, that costs money itself. And to have offices and employ and so on and so forth, that costs money, the money that we do not have. So financially, we are having a problem to actually actively participate and challenge the status quo.
Okay, let's talk about the luxury bus liner industry or business in general here in South Africa. Is it an evergreen business? Like, does it operate all year round, or you simply thrive on peak seasons?
It is a seasonal kind of business. You'll have your peak period, and then you'll have your middle and low trading periods.
Okay.
Naturally, the industry, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial, if you look at the pricing, there is a price war in the bus industry. Why I'm saying this? You would have, for an example, today one operator will charge a ticket between Johannesburg and Durban, 150 rands. But there's a time when the very same company charges 600 rands. Now, if that is not exploitation of members of the community, I do not know. But to me, it says that the price war, it is structured in such a way that the small operators are suffocated. If the ticket price is below operational cost, the smaller operator cannot be able to survive. But the big companies may be able to survive on the basis that they've got bigger resources, they've got bigger reserves financially.
Make me understand, Themba, the pricing or the different price list, does it have to do with the level of comfort that each bus offers?
Not necessarily these days. You'll find a super luxury vehicle today for you to travel between either Cape Town and Johannesburg. You're paying 400 rands or 300 rands for that matter. But say maybe during Easter holidays or December, for the very same route, you are paying 1,200 rands. Okay. Now, how do you practically justify such a difference? Yes, obviously, during peak season, everybody wants to make money. That is a fact. And the business obviously needs a profit in order to survive. But what I'm saying, if we compare, is that during a low trading period, you'll have, the likes of the very companies which are able to charge 1,200, they charge 100 rand. You have situation at times that a bus company will charge 199 rands between Johannesburg and Durban. Tell me that is not a way of suffocating other operators. In that particular instance, it does not only affect smaller bus operators, but it also affects the taxi industry, because that it means nobody would want to pay 300 or 400 rands to travel the same distance where there is another operator who's charging 100 rand, for an example. Yes. So I am saying, within that particular context, if there was more time, I'll go even deeper. Within that particular scenario, you have a situation of bigger companies exploiting and also suffocating the smaller business operators by lowering the prices below operational costs. Yes.
Are you not threatened by the emergence and the popularity of the low-cost airline business? For instance, if I were to buy a ticket from Joburg to Durban at 450 rand, I know that one of the low-cost airlines charges 499 rand between Joburg and Durban. Is your business not feeling threatened, perhaps, by the low-cost airlines?
Okay, a business is about competition.
Yes.
And it depends on what you have on the plate. What attracts the people? Are you having a 7-color meal, or you're having a quarter, or you're having just chips on the plate? And two, the kind of clientele that you are targeting. there will always be people who will travel with the taxi, regardless of how comfortable the bus is, regardless of how comfortable the aeroplane is. Now, also, some of the routes or destinations, for an example, no aeroplane has an airport to land. And the cake is big. What matters the most is how you position yourself in this business, and how you market yourself in the business, and which clientele are you targeting. Mm-hmm. So personally, as Nozulu and TSP, we're not necessarily worried about the competitors, because they will always be there. We found them there. What we need to do is to improve our game. What we need to do is not to shout, but improve on arguments that we may have for or against what is happening currently. Mm-hmm. So insofar as competition, we do need competition in every sphere of life. And we need not to be afraid of competition, but we need to be able to maneuver around. And at the end of the day, if we satisfy the customers that we are having, one is able to invite another person, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure. Competition is good, and competition is healthy, and competition is, of course, for the benefit of the consumer or the customer, because it keeps you on your toes in terms of improving your service, isn't it? So what sort of service can an average public transport user expect when they use one of your buses?
Well, I'm not going to grandstand here and say perhaps we are super different than any other operators.
Sure.
Nozulu and TSP are providing a normal general service to passengers. But what we are looking at trying to do is to avoid the exploitation insofar as the pricing of tickets, insofar as the nature of traveling. We are trying to say inter-provincial transport, as was original. The bus travels from point A to point B.
Okay.
Now, why are you doing that? A person wants to go to Durban from Johannesburg. And that has always been the case. Up until the big guns were able to exploit and somehow make sure that the operations expand beyond the intended consequence of the operation, inter-provincial operation. What I'm trying to say is that you have now a situation where a bus will move from Bara or Chris Hani Hospital, picks up the people there, it goes to Park Station, it picks up the people, from there it goes to Phosphorus, pick up the people, and so on and so forth. Now the buses are operating like taxis, which is a problem. But if we are, as Nozulu and TSP, we are saying if a person is going to Durban, let's take a person from Durban to Johannesburg. In between, we do not interfere with any operations which are taking place. If a person is moving from Johannesburg to Cape Town or to Umtata, let that person travel directly to the destination, because it is going to be convenient for the passenger. Mm-hmm. One, you are cutting on traveling time, and also you are cutting on the time that the traveler spend on the road, and increasing the time that the passenger will spend with the family on arriving.
Okay.
So we are targeting and aiming at making sure that when we say you are traveling from point A to point B, one, you are definitely going to travel in that particular format. We are not going to via Vereeniging or Newcastle or that kind of a story. So our operation, we're still trying to model. We are not yet there. There are still a lot of things that we want to improve, and we're still doing some little bit of market research.
Okay. And how do you ensure then that COVID-19 protocols are observed at all times during your trips?
Fortunate enough, we have a program that our buses are being sanitized on a regular basis. Okay. To start with, and then we are providing sanitizers at the places of boarding. We were trying to do the best that we can under the circumstances. Now, the challenge is that we obviously deal with different kind of people, different characters. You have people who cooperate, you have those that do not necessarily cooperate. We've had issues at times. We've been taken to police stations because we refuse some of the people to board the bus without masks. And some of the people will board the bus with mask on. Soon after that, a person will take off the mask. So we have to deal with those practical situations, but we are trying to comply with the rules and regulations as much as we can. And we understand exactly the impact of COVID-19.
All right, Mr. Themba Nozulu, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a nice day.
All right, thank you. You too. That was the founder and CEO of Noxulu, Luxliner, Themba Nozulu, joining us via Zoom. All right.